Now catch up with the New South Wales Education Minister, Sarah Mitchell. Thanks for joining us again, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Now, you released your plan on Friday for New South Wales children to go back to school. I saw it very much as an extension, a more than a 2-month extension of kids being away from classroom learning. Why are children not able to go back to schools, face-to-face learning in most of New South Wales as we speak?
Well, look, it's just because, Chris, obviously we're in lockdown right across the state. We've got concern in many communities about the caseloads and the vaccination rates not yet being as high as we need it to be. Look, certainly as Education Minister, I know the best teaching and learning happens when kids are at school. It's not ideal to have people learning from home. But putting that roadmap out last week was really about letting people know these are the dates that we're working on. Obviously in regional communities, if we have lockdown lift sooner and if we're able to come out on the 10th of September that the Deputy Premier has indicated, we'll be able to have those students back at school more quickly. But really it's just based on getting vaccination rates up in the community and also making sure that we've got those COVID settings in place where we know we can have students back.
We've heard repeatedly from medical experts that children face such a tiny risk from getting ill from this disease. We know, of course, they can be infected and pass it on, and more so with the Delta strain. But the risk to children is absolutely minuscule in terms of their health. So is keeping kids out of the classroom more about protecting teachers than the children?
Well, like for us in New South Wales, Chris, it's based on the advice that we get from the New South Wales Health public team, Dr. Kerry Chant and others. Like I said, I'm very conscious that each and every day that our kids aren't at school, yes, there's education impacts and there's wellbeing impacts. But you're right, the Delta variant has added another element to it. We do have students and children who have been affected by COVID in a way that we didn't have during the outbreaks last year. Part of it is getting those vaccination rates up for our staff, and we've put mandation around that from the 8th of November. And again, that's based on the health advice. So it's about getting those settings right. It's about being COVID safe, staggering the return, making sure that our teachers and school staff are vaccinated. And of course, for students aged 12 and up who will now be eligible for those vaccines as well, giving them an opportunity to get dosed before they start school as well.
Have you been given ultimatums by the teachers' unions? Have they resisted getting back to face-to-face learning? And were you too slow in getting teachers as a priority on the vaccination lists?
Look, I haven't been given an ultimatum by anyone. And to be frank, we've spoken to all of the stakeholders about the way forward when it comes back to students going back to school. I make decisions that are in the best interest of the students first and foremost, and that's my job as Education Minister without doubt. I think in terms of priority access for teachers, again, this was something that I've been saying for a long time, that we should have been giving access to teachers earlier than we have been, and I certainly raised that with my federal counterpart earlier this year. But, there's now plentiful supply of vaccines. AstraZeneca is widely available. I myself have had AstraZeneca. I'm in my 30s, but I took that opportunity because I think whatever vaccine you can get is the best vaccine for you. So, we're encouraging our staff to get vaccinated. We've surveyed our staff and about 70% have already had their first dose, which is encouraging and means that we are hopeful that we can hit that date of the 8th of November by having all of our teachers double vaccinated by that point.
Let's just narrow it down for a moment to primary school children, because in high school, of course, you come into young adults and there are those vaccination issues as well. A lot of high school students will get vaccinated. But are you saying that you have medical advice from the state government medical team that primary school kids are at greater health risk at school than they are being homeschooled?
No, what we're seeing though, Chris, is that we are seeing children catch COVID in a way that we weren't during the last year's outbreak, and that Delta variant is affecting all cohorts. And I think you see that in the case numbers that come in, and you can see that spread across the population. Certainly for primary school, there isn't a vaccine available. So the health advice that we have is if we can vaccinate the staff on site, that's important to protect our primary school students. Their parents should be getting vaccinated as well.
But just to go back at the start of that answer, you said no. So you're saying that there's not a health risk to primary school children going to the classroom, going to school. It's not a direct health risk to them.
No, as I said, the advice that we have had is that until those vaccination rates in the community come up, we are seeing children contract Delta. And even at the moment, Chris, we've got children learning from home. Schools are open for anyone who needs to attend. But we've still had numbers of schools impacted by positive cases in both students and staff. And so we do have to manage that risk. We've got to look at the COVID safe settings that we will put in place. We've got to look at the vaccines of the staff as well. Our plan going forward has been endorsed by New South Wales Health, and it's about those key elements of vaccination for our teachers and staff, better vaccination rates in the community by October, again, which I know the Premier and others have commented on already, and also the COVID safe settings in schools. No extra adults, no mixing and mingling. Mask wearing will now be recommended for primary school students. So our plan is based on advice that we've got from health.
It's a tough gig. You've got people pushing in all directions, and you can see what direction I'm pushing in. Just before I get to let you go, though, very briefly, this timetable means that the New South Wales broader lockdown is going till the end of October, doesn't it?
Oh, look, not necessarily. What this is the plan for schools going forward. Can I say, picking up on your point about everyone's got a view on this, that's certainly true. I've had parents say they wish the children were back sooner. I've had others still hesitant about this. And as a parent myself dealing with learning from home, I'm very sympathetic to how challenging it could be, can I assure your viewers. So this is our plan, obviously, for schools going forward. I think the Premier and the Deputy Premier have already said there will be other considerations around the roadmap in October, November, when we start to hit those vaccination rates. And they're all matters that will be considered by government and by Crisis Cabinet in particular.
Thanks for joining us, Minister. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
New South Wales Education Minister Sarah Mitchell. And those parents out there pushing politicians not to send kids back to school, don't bother. Let the kids go back to school. If you don't want to send your kids, don't send them. But let other people get their kids back to school.